Hello and welcome to another episode of Sports and Songs podcast. We're on season 5, episode 30. This is a sports edition. My name is Dan. Sports only today on this episode. Happy Memorial Weekend. We're going to cover a bunch of things, starting off with the Minnesota Lynx, the very hat here, pro women's basketball. The new power rankings came out this last week. Connecticut Sun, number 1 in the rankings. But guess who's at number 2? The Lynx. Lynx started off the season very strong, doing very well. Their only loss was to Connecticut in overtime by 1 point. So that may be the team to watch here in the early going. The Lynx are looking very good. The UFL, United Football League, 10-week season. They're completed 9 weeks so far on the year, which means there's only 1 week left before the postseason or the playoffs. The schedule makers came very interesting how this came out here for week 10 this coming weekend. The same teams that'll be in the playoffs, the very same opponents are playing each other here in week 10 coming up, which means the 2 games of 4 teams that have all been eliminated are all playing each other and have no meaning on anything, no bearing, no meaning. But in 2 weeks, the championship game will be 2 of the teams playing at the exact same location. So they'll be playing each other in a rematch, essentially in the playoffs the following week. So this game this weekend really doesn't mean anything, and they probably don't want to be showing each other too many tricks and too many plays, and they probably may be playing a lot of their reserves and non-starters. So it could be interesting. The other game between the 2 playoff teams is a game where the home field advantage is still up for grabs. So now we've got a situation where they're playing each other. They're going to do the best they can, probably playing their starters, probably doing all the things they need to win so they get the home field advantage to then the following week then play each other again. So we're going to have back-to-back weeks, week 10, which is this coming weekend, and the following week with 2 of the teams playing the exact same opponent. So it'll be interesting there in the UFL. And remember, that's the combination of the XFL and the USFL. So that'll be interesting this weekend. The other 2 teams, like I said, have no bearings. They're out of the playoffs. They're out. They're eliminated. They're playing essentially just for fun or to keep a roster spot for next year. I don't know how that's all going to go. Back to women's sports. The Professional Women's Hockey League is in the finals. It's a best of 5. This is the first ever. This is the first inaugural season of the Professional Women's Hockey League. Minnesota's in it, and Boston is in it. And so when they play, I believe it's tomorrow, Wednesday, in Boston, it'll be game 5. Right now the series is tied 2 games apiece. The interesting thing with game 4 was that it went to double overtime, 0-0, no score in regulation, no score in overtime number 1. And it took until the end, close to the end of overtime 2, where the Minnesota team scored a goal that was subsequently waved off. Minnesota had thought they won it. They also had a 3-games-to-1 advantage, or a 2-games-to-1 advantage, seemingly clinched the finals, which is called the Walter Cup. They waved it off due to goaltender interference. Went back to 0-0. They played subsequently. Boston soon after scored and won the game in sudden death, much to the chagrin of the Minnesota fans. So it's tied 2 games to 2 games. A winner-take-all Wednesday night in Boston for the first ever inaugural Walter Cup, which is the same women's version of the Stanley Cup. So that will be interesting. Major League Baseball news. We're about 30% way through the season in the Major League Baseball. So I did some calculations. Basically, a third of the way through, you want to be at, for the teams you're rooting for, you want to be close to that 30-win mark. All things being equal, if you're 33% of the way through the season, you're at 30 wins, you're going to end up in a 90 range. 90 will get you into the playoffs. 90 will get you into the postseason. You need to win more than that to be the best team with the home field advantage and all that. But you want to be at 9. You want to be at about 30 wins right now. The Minnesota Twins are right there, I think, at 29, I believe. Right now they're at 29. And so for the anti-fans that are saying that the Twins are not doing well or they're not playing well, yes, they are third place team in the American League Central. American League Central is the hottest or the most competitive division in all of baseball right now, which was kind of odd because in the offseason and the last couple of years, it was the weakest division. So right now, Cleveland's in first, Kansas City's in second, Twins are in third. All three of those are on pace. I'll repeat, on pace to win about 90 games, 90 or more games. Will that happen? I don't know, but it is the toughest division right now. Twins are in the hunt to finish at about 90 wins. That would be very huge for a lot of the prognosticators who really came in thinking that the Twins would win about half the games, maybe 81, probably 78, 76 to 78 to maybe 82, 83 at the high mark. Right now they're on pace to win 90. So that's good. They're sitting in a good position. They're getting injured players back. Ronald Acuna for the Atlanta Braves, MCL injury, out for the rest of the season. They'll be looking for an outfielder. There's already 4 or 5 names mentioned. I think Toronto is looking for an outfielder. Keep in mind that Max Kepler of the Twins is still, I believe, trade block material. The Twins have a couple of infielders looking to come up from the minors. So there's nowhere to put them, nowhere to place these guys. Kepler is expendable. He also has a $10 million salary this year. Look for him to be trade bait, and the Twins can get something in return and get these young outfielders some playing time. One of them is Deshaun Kiersey Jr., lighting up the league in AAA for the St. Paul Saints, doing very well. Austin Martin is down there at the St. Paul Saints. I think he's hitting 348. Struggled a little bit with the majors. I don't think there's much left for him to do at the minor league level, so I think they're going to bring him up, or he's due to come up. He seemed to be very comfortable for the Twins in the outfield and on the base paths. This Deshaun Kiersey as a center fielder is the only issue. They got Buxton in center, who's not hurt, surprisingly. This far into the season, they've got Manuel Margot brought in to be the backup center fielder. Willie Castro plays center. I'm not really a big fan of having Castro play center field. He's a serviceable outfielder, I think, but not the caliber of a center fielder that you need out there. Deshaun could fill that role. But what are they going to do with Manuel Margot, picked up from the Dodgers in the offseason? He also $10 million deal. Twins brought him on, opened the checkbook with the Polad family, opened the checkbook to bring him on for $10 million this year and $12 million next year. So Margot is on the deal for a 2-year deal to make $10 million this year, $12 million next year. Kepler, as we said, $10 million this year, and then he's done. I don't see him finishing the year in a Twins uniform. Do we like him? Yes. Is he good? Yes. But could you get something for him in return, like we got with the Polanco trade and the shortstop that we sent off the minor league deal in the offseason as well, to get some good players in return? The interesting thing is with the Twins starting pitching rotation, top 5 guys there, pitching rotation. The worst is really Pablo Lopez right now, our star pitcher, our ace pitcher. Target Field has a home day named after him this season called Pablo Day. Every time he pitches, it's Pablo Day, number 1 pitcher, on the cover of all of our Twins media guide programs. This year, he's actually doing the worst of all of the other pitchers. Our pitchers number 2, 3, 4, and 5 are actually doing better than him. So hopefully he'll make a turnaround. The question is, if the Twins do get another starting pitcher, who's going to be dropped out of the rotation? They're all pitching very good. In fact, most impressively, Simeon Woods Richardson, Bailey Ober, Chris Paddock, Joe Ryan is unbelievable. So there's 4 guys there. Pablo's doing the worst. You're not going to cut him. You're not going to trade him. You're not going to bench him. So the question is, what do you do when you get another starting pitcher? They've got relief pitchers come up in the minors that are stockpiled down there in the minors that we went off in the offseason and selected the contract of a multitude of relief pitchers. So we've got relief pitchers ready to go. Starting pitching is sitting good. If we were to trade a guy like Max Kepler, who would we get in return? Toronto has floated the idea of possibly Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who's struggling this year playing first base. Well, wouldn't he be a nice addition for the Twins? But we went out and got Carlos Santana to play first base. Interesting stuff. But anyway, keep in mind we're a third of the way through the season right now. Teams at 30 or more wins should be your playoff teams, on pace really right now, all things being equal, to hit that 90 win mark. NHL hockey, Stanley Cup playoffs are down to the final four teams. They're going right now, battling in the conference finals right now. Next week, we'll have more on that on the sports edition as the Stanley Cup opponents are set up and lined up, and the schedule set for the best of seven. There really not much to talk about here on this show for the NHL. But the NBA, the Wolves, Minnesota Timberwolves, Western Conference Finals. They're down to the final three teams right now. The East, Boston Celtics has clinched the East. They won. They're in the finals. They will be in the finals. And right now, they are in the finals against the winner of the Dallas Mavericks, a 5 seed. Yes, a 5 seed, currently sweeping the Timberwolves. Very shocking display. Most people had the Timberwolves, I guess, picked, or for the most part, predicted or bet on them sweeping the Dallas Mavericks. The last round was this tough round that the Wolves had against the Nuggets. Possibly the toughest matchup they'd face all season was that 7-game series, and they beat the Nuggets. So many thought this would be a much, much easier ride here in the next round. That is not the fact. Now they're facing elimination. They play tonight. There's various watch parties around the Twin Cities. I'll watch that game. They're facing elimination. They lose, they're going to be out. They win, they've got to rattle off 4 straight wins to advance. If they were the winner of this series, now will be taking on the Boston Celtics. Olympics coming up. This end of July is the Summer Olympics in Paris. That'll be kicking off the very final week of July. A couple weeks before that, early to mid-July, is the Pan Am Masters Games. Guys, very similar to the Olympics, except it's for masters, meaning over 35 adults are playing in a tournament, sports tournament hosted in Cleveland, Ohio, called the Pan Am Masters Games. I think 20 events of sports with various categories of over 35, over 45, over 55, and over 65 competition. They move that around every year to a different country. This is the only time, I think, for a long time before it comes back to the U.S. So that'll be fun. We'll be covering that on the show as well. It's hosted in Cleveland, Ohio this year. Lots of coverage we'll be providing here in the next couple of months. That's all I've got for today. This is Sports Edition. We'll be back next week as Andy is out on assignment. This is Season 5,